Hey, I want to talk a little bit before the show ends about this article I read in Bloomberg, hedge funds unlikely saviors for New York area homeowners. And, you know, when the housing crisis first erupted in 2008 and the government was talking about bailouts, one of the reasons that I was opposed to the bailouts, and of course there were many, but one was that I said these are bailouts not for homeowners but for banks. I thought that homeowners didn't have anything to worry about. If the price of their homes collapsed, that was actually going to be a good thing for the homeowners, I thought. It was going to be bad for the lenders. But the politicians were trying to say, oh, you know, we have to help the homeowners. We have to prop up home values. And at the time I said, no, the best thing for the homeowner is that the value of their home plunges. Because that way they're going to get a great deal from the bank when they have to write down the principal and give them a new mortgage, which is exactly what the banks would have done if they didn't get bailed out. But because of the bailouts, the banks didn't have to do that, and so the homeowners remained underwater. Well, now, I guess years later, the process is finally starting to happen, and it's happening with hedge funds. I'm reading this article that hedge funds now are buying up non-performing mortgages for 60% of the appraised value of the property. Not 60% of the face value of the mortgage. So let's say there's a mortgage of $500,000 on a property that used to be worth $600,000, but now it's worth $300,000. So it's a $500,000 mortgage. The property is worth $300,000. The hedge fund can buy the mortgage for $180,000. That's it. Now, first you got to think, you know, why would the bank even sell the loan for 60% below what the value of the property is? Well, obviously, you know, they might not believe these appraisals. They probably don't believe that you can actually liquidate the property and get what the appraisals are. So that's one indication, too, that the market is not nearly as healthy as some people would think it would be, right? But the article starts out by talking about this guy, Louis Ragusa, who's living in New Jersey, which apparently I didn't realize that New Jersey is now the foreclosure capital of the country. So I don't know how well that plays for Chris Christie if he's running for president. That he's got the worst foreclosure market in the country. But it mentions that he has lived in his house for 2 years and hasn't made a single payment during those 2 years. Yet he's still there. The bank can't get rid of him. He's been living there for 2 years. You know, imagine, you know, how much tougher it would be for him if he actually had to pay a mortgage or had to pay rent. He's living mortgage-free and rent-free. Right? Now, maybe he doesn't even have a job. I don't know what his employment situation is. But how many people are in those circumstances? How many people are living in their houses for 2 years and haven't made a single payment? I bet he hasn't paid his property taxes either, and I bet he hasn't spent a nickel maintaining that property. But he's been living there. But here's what the hedge funds are able to do. They're able to buy let's say a $500,000 mortgage for $180,000, and then they can go to the homeowner and say, hey, you haven't paid your mortgage in 2 years. I'm going to kick you, either here's $5,000, get the hell out, right? They'll give you a check right now. I mean, I wouldn't leave, but they're going to say, look, if you get out, fine. If you don't want to get out, here's what we'll do. We will knock off $200,000 off your mortgage, $300,000. So you don't owe $500,000. You only owe $250,000. You owe $250,000, and here's your new payment structure based on a $250,000 mortgage. We'll get rid of all the late penalties and all that stuff, and here's your new payment. Can you swing this? And maybe they can. And now they're in the house. They got a mortgage that they can afford, and now the hedge fund has a performing asset, which is now worth more than what they paid, and they can turn around and sell it. But the whole process involves the losses being absorbed by the lenders, which is what I said at the time. If you had a $500,000 mortgage on a $200,000 house, you don't want the government to try to get the house to be back up to $400,000 or $500,000. You're still going to be underwater. You want the house to stay low or go down because now the bank has no choice but to actually give you a mortgage that you can afford. Because why are they going to foreclose? Who are they going to sell it to? Nobody. The price is down. The losers in a real estate crash are the lenders. The buyers had a free put, right? Once you've exhausted your down payment, right? And a lot of people bought houses with nothing down. if you bought with nothing down, the collapse in the price helps you because it gives you leverage with the lender to reduce your principal, especially when the government said that these principal write-downs are not taxable income. In the past, if your lender wrote down the principal of your mortgage, that was taxable income to you. Whatever loan was forgiven was income. But when the government, suspended that, that's all they needed to do. We would have had a much better resolution of the housing crisis had there been no stimulus, no bailouts, had the government not done anything to help the homeowners. Most of the people who lost their homes to foreclosure would still have their homes. It's just that they would have much lower mortgages, and it would have been the banks that would have lost the money. But because of all the bailouts and stimulus, the banks got bailed out. But, they never say that we're trying to save the lenders or trying to save the banks. They always pretend that it's about the homeowner, but it was never about the homeowner. It was always about the financial institutions. Homeowners would have been served better in a free market, just like this guy, Louis Ragusa. He couldn't get anywhere with the bank, but now the bank is forced to sell the mortgage at a loss, and now all of a sudden, maybe he gets a lower mortgage and he can afford his house.